Part 1. Crossing the Atlantic. This wooden ship was not meant to carry passengers, so people were crammed into the cargo hold below deck. During the 66-day journey, the people had to sleep on wooden pallets. There were no bathrooms, and the ship leaked during storms. Many people became sick, and some died of malnutrition or disease. The ship I just described was called the Mayflower. I wanted to point out how crossing the Atlantic was difficult for everyone, not just the slave ships. Stories regarding slave ships often include descriptions of slaves held in chains. Other stories describe revolts, causing the crew to defend themselves with guns. Uprisings such as these would result in a loss of the precious human cargo. But there is another narrative which contradicts these stories. A sea captain would buy the slaves from Africa, and sell them in America. He would insure his voyage against any loss of human cargo. But that provides him with an opportunity to retrieve money he didn't spend. The captain would purchase only enough slaves to fill half his ship. Then he would bring sick or dying men on board, at no cost, to increase the head count. They would die during the journey, and be thrown overboard. The captain would mark it down as a loss, knowing the insurance would reimburse him. Eventually, the insurance companies learned about this practice, so they no longer covered any losses due to illness. They would only pay if an unfortunate incident occurred during the voyage, such as a revolt or uprising. Suddenly there were a lot of stories about slaves attempting to take over the ships, and the insurance companies were forced to pay again. The captains would claim the slaves were shot and thrown overboard. Soon, the insurance companies would demand proof that the captain took precautions to prevent a slave uprising. So the captain would keep shackles and chains in a storage cabinet, and only bring them out to prove he locked the slaves down below deck. The insurance company would say, "But this is your third uprising this year. How is this possible, if the slaves were chained below?" To which the captain would reply, "We unlocked them, and brought the slaves on deck so they could dance. That's when they turned on us." This is such an unbelievable story. It is why I have become skeptical about some of the history we have been told. In fact, the more we learn the truth, the more ridiculous the stories become. I just recently read a story, claiming some slaves would refuse to eat, so the evil captain would pry their mouth open and force feed them. The article includes a picture of the tool they claim was designed for force feeding. The idiocy is laughable. If it's nearly impossible to maneuver through the crowded hull to feed the slaves, then how can you know who is not eating on purpose? And who is going to crawl over the bodies just to give special attention to one guy, and stick a gynecologist's tool in his mouth and force feed him? I will even suggest that some African body art was misrepresented as branding, conducted by evil white men. But when is the last time the name of a cargo ship was stamped on something you bought from overseas? And why didn't the Pilgrims have the letter M branded into their flesh, to prove they arrived on the Mayflower?